it is open now. We can start.
Okay. So, very good morning to all dignitaries, guests, and panel experts, and all participants who has joined this event, Industry Academia Conclave. I am Dr. Manoj Srivastava from Indian Institute of Petroleum. I am a senior principal scientist here. I welcome you all for this inaugural as well as first session of the Industry Academia Conclave, which is focused on the improving mutual understanding between industry and academia. So first of all, I would like to give a very brief about this IISF and our Industry Academia Conclave event. So the Industry Academia Conclave, this India International Science Festival 2020, it is being organized by the Ministry of Science and Technology, Ministry of Earth Sciences, Department of Science Technology, Department of Biotechnology, and Department of Health and Family Welfare. And CSIR is the nodal agency who is coordinating this event. So this event was organized, inaugurated yesterday by the Honorable Prime Minister of India at 4:30. So this was started now. And earlier 5 events have been was in the physical form, but now this is being done at a virtual platform, and we hope that from our data, 1 million people have joined this event. This year, the event of the IISF 2020 is the Science for Self-Reliant India and Global Welfare. In this event, there are 41 events are there. So one event is the Industry Academia Conclave, which is a very important event. And just in a minute time, I will give you the brief background. In our country, generally, the academic institutions are viewed as largely responsible for carrying out the basic scientific research. While our industry people, they are considered for the responsible for the commercialization of the new product and processes. In between, our national labs, just like a CSIR, DBT, DST, they play a very important role in between. They take forward our basic research, develop the processes and products, and commercialize them. So that, we felt that in these years, normally our industry and academia, they are operating in a separate domain. So one event, Industry Academia Conclave, was designed in such a way so it can give you the platform so that the academic institutes, the students and faculty, scientists from the R&D institutes, industry peoples, policy makers, they can come together at a platform, they can discuss, and they can move ahead in this direction. So in this direction, the main our points are, which we will discuss here, just to provide the opportunity to experts from the industry, faculty members, so we can check out our roadmap, so we can interact them, collaborate them, and took our basic research forward to the commercialization. Second point we can discuss here, we suggest some concrete measures how we can train our students and other manpower, and we can improve their academic curriculum so they can be ready for taking the industry. So this is the second point. And beside this, we can also provide some decisions, so we can suggest something to the government agencies so they can make some policy for the betterment of the academics as well as industry. So this is a brief about this program. Now, before we start that, our Science and Technology Minister, Dr. Harshvardhan, they have given a one message. So we would like to first see the video. So please play the video.
Efficient interaction between industries, academia, and R&D labs has been the backbone of technological growth in most advanced countries. The Industry Academia Conclave has been organized to enhance such interactions in India. All stakeholders will be brought together to deliberate through panel discussions on ways to promote industry participation in teaching as well as in research and development. It will provide a big push to make our academic curriculums industry ready and understand expectations of MSME and industries from national research laboratories and universities. The conclave will also help deliberate on the important issue of synchronizing and preserving the intellectual property rights of all stakeholders involved in knowledge transfers. All these are key areas which will help strengthen our robust growth story and boost job creation in the country.
So we would like to thank our Honorable Minister. So he has spared some time and provided us a brief recording about this. So we are again thankful to him. Now we start our panel session. So there is our director, sir, Dr. Anjan Ray. He will give a special address in this. So I welcome him. And first of all, I will give a brief introduction about him. So, and after that, I request him to start the special address. Dr. Anjan Ray, he is our director of the CSIR, Indian Institute of Petroleum, Dehradun. He received his doctoral degree in chemistry from the University of Pennsylvania under the guidance of Nobel laureate Professor Alan McDermott. He then moved to after the PhD, he moved to the chemical industry, and he has a very long experience of more than 25 years. And they hold very responsible positions for the spanning for the quality control to the technical services, R&D marketing, management, mergers, acquisitions, and corporate strategy. He has a very wide exposure and experience in diverse area of the R&D, just like he worked a lot in the area of the surfactants, oleochemistry, lubricants, coating, adhesive, textile, pharmaceuticals, biofuels, renewable energy. These are some area of his interest. Recently, we acknowledge his contribution towards the COVID-19. So after seeing the need of the country, Dr. Ray has taken some initiative. So first thing he has done, he has established this COVID-19 test facility just in a 7 weeks time. And it is operating here, and more than thousands of the tests has been carried out in our facility. Second initiative he has taken, he motivate us to develop a oxygen concentrator, so we can develop by the in-house expertise from here, and we have established a pilot plant facility here. So we will dedicate to the one hospital, so more than 50 patients can be supplied oxygen who are very critical, so like that. So these initiatives are worth mentioning. Besides these R&D areas and research areas, he has very professional career and he has very active interest in the different disciplines, just like media, education, heritage, environment conservation, and others. So these are his credentials. So I invite our director, sir, Dr. Ray, just to give his special address. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Srivastav, my esteemed fellow panelists, and the organizers of IISF and the Industry Academia Conclave, especially Professor Mithilesh Tiwari, Dr. Sunil Bhatt, Dr. Tarakant Jana, and Dr. Manoj Srivastav. It is a pleasure to be here talking about a subject very dear to my heart on the effectiveness of industry-academia interactions. Almost all of us on the panel, without exception, have worked across boundaries of state, country, and nations in developing and taking technologies from concept to market. And this is a core feature of success in the technological world, and not just here, but in every country around the world. The countries that have done this well have taken technological leads. In a country as small as Taiwan, for example, I was humbled when I visited ITRI roughly the equivalent of CSIR. And ITRI has a target of spinning off one company every week. Every week they spin off one company from their technology developments. Some of the world's largest semiconductor companies like TSMC have been spun up from ITRI. So their cultural basis, because it is a small country where the resources are primarily driven by knowledge, natural and mineral resources are limited, is to leverage that knowledge to create wealth. Similarly, we look at Israel. In areas like desalination, in areas like artificial intelligence, drone technology, and even pharmaceutical drug delivery, the Israelis are second to none. Again, a small country with limited resources, in fact, in a very hostile environment around them, they have to focus and prioritize and do the things that they can do best with their limited resources. We, on the other hand, in India, almost have a problem of plenty. We are a resource-rich country, especially in terms of manpower. How resource-rich? I can give you a simple example that I quote almost everywhere. We import, and we hear for decades we've been hearing that we import crude oil because we don't have any crude oil of our own. But actually, crude oil is nothing but hydrogen and carbon atoms. And if I look at the carbon atoms we import 350 million tons of carbon atoms every year. And then very happily, we throw away wastes, whether it is municipal wastes, solid or liquid, industrial waste, plastic waste, agri-waste. We throw away 500 million carbon atoms every year. So our perspective on self-reliance needs to change. And if industry and academia could come together at one end to create a very large knowledge basket, and at the other end to filter this knowledge basket through very specific outcome-directed milestones to deliver what industry needs in a time-bound, cost-bound, differentiation-bound manner, I think we would have a very successful country model. There are three things, having spent most of my career in industry and having spent quite a bit of that in working with academia, I would say there are three things that ultimately matter in the design of a product or service or offering that goes to market. The first one is, does anybody care? It is not useful for a scientist to develop something that he thinks is good, that is not to do the science that he wants to do or he or she wants to do, but actually look at what is the science or technology that needs to be done? Who will care for it? Who will benefit from it? Who will pay for it? Somebody was willing to do the science for an iPhone and keep investing in the iPhone from iPhone 1 to iPhone 12 that you see today because there was a market for it. Dr. Bharadwaj, after me, talks about Boeing. Boeing's objective is to sell planes, but Boeing is also the world leader in electronic communications, in satellite connectivity, in fuel science, in advanced materials for lightweighting an aircraft. Everything that goes into an aircraft ecosystem, Boeing will invest in, not knowing whether out of 10 projects, 2 will succeed or all 10 will fail, but taking those bets in a conscious and thought out manner, because without those investments, it is very difficult for a large industry to take a global position. Talking now towards the MSMEs, whom form the backbone of India's industry, and over 80% of India's industrialists are MSMEs. There is a mindset here where MSMEs find it difficult to work with academia because they are always looking at short-term profits. The ability to show long-term value to MSME is as incumbent on academia as it is on MSME itself. And policymakers can only provide short-term bridges like grants, loans, support schemes, etc., to build this engagement. I will give you an example of our own plant in Numaligarh. This is a wax plant. It separates out wax from a petroleum stream. And India was a net wax importer before this plant came up in 2016. Today, India not only meets half of its wax needs of about 300 crores, but this plant also exports to 13 countries, displacing, in fact, the same companies that were earlier selling to India at a premium. The spin-off effect has been that over 2,000 small candle industries have come up in and around Assam because now wax is abundantly available. The same wax is going into things like jewelry casting, into food grade applications, into wax paper, things that were not there earlier. And for each of these opportunities, there is some small scale industry that has stepped forward because the ecosystem now exists. I would strongly encourage all our MSME friends and colleagues on this discussion to come together with academia, sometimes as a consortium, and make small investments. There is today a CSR opportunity, corporate social responsibility. The government provides a tax break and allows you to discharge your CSR obligations by funding research and education. You can fund chair professorships to institutes of learning. You can fund projects which will improve your community without any expectation of profit, but knowing that you will get goodwill if the area around your factory has healthy people with good drinking water or educated people who can become your future talent pool. So these are all opportunities that are supported today. And I hope that in the discussions in this industry academia conclave, there will be many such opportunities that will be surfaced, debated, taken forward. And next year when we meet, we will have a session on success stories coming out of the IAC. Thank you all very much. Namaskar. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, sir, for giving us, for telling us about the key points so that this industry and academia can interact in a better way, and also provide the roadmap, we can say, how we can work together, we can do the research and commercialize it, so we can see the success story in the next year as you have suggested. So once again, I am thankful to you and thank you very much, sir. Now, we have our one keynote speakers, Dr. Vallabh Bharadwaj. So I welcome you, sir, and for your keynote speech. So before that, I will just introduce to all audience. So first we welcome to the Vallabh Bharadwaj, and then I read his biodata. Dr. Vallabh Bharadwaj has been with the Boeing company since 1987, and he served a lot up to after coming to the India in 2009. He held various senior positions and leadership positions in the area of technology development, technology integration, engineering, program management, strategic planning, and before joining to the Boeing company, he was a faculty of the Aerospace and Mechanical Engineering Department at Boston University, USA. So I welcome you, sir, and because I have seen your biodata, you have a rich experience of the academia because you was a faculty and you are also a very leading company of Boeing. And further, during your career in the United States, he was contributed to a variety of the projects spanning analysis, design, lab testing, flight testing, like that. And you have been conferred several very high-level awards, notably just like a Money First Award for the best PhD thesis by Sigma, Scientific Research Society, Team Excellent Award, Group Achievement Award, National Aeronautics and Space Administration by the Space Administration, and you have also been recognized as a quality hero and process management role model by the Boeing Long Beach study. Dr. Bharadwaj has done his BTech from Aeronautical Engineering from IIT Madras, then followed by the MS and PhD degree from Georgia Institute of the Technology, and then done some MBA from the University of the California at Irvine, California. Dr. Bharadwaj is also Associate Fellow of the American Institute and Astronautics, and as a member of the Beta Gamma Sigma Business Honor Society. Dr. Bharadwaj is also an active member of the SAE India and chairs the Aerospace Board, a team of eminent aerospace leaders from India. So these are some credentials, and Dr. Bala is also a member of Air and Space Group of SAE International. So with this brief introduction, I welcome Dr. Balaji, and I invite him to give his keynote speech in this session. So I hand over the platform to Dr. Balaji.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. Can you please confirm that I'm audible?
Yes.
You are.
Yes,
Yes,
you
sir.
are.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Yes, we
Thank
can hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. As you heard, I've been in the university and moved to industry. I was in a university in Boston for 7 years. But I will tell you something, and this kind of refers back to some of the things that Dr. Anjan Ray was talking about. When I was in the university as a professor, I was doing research, I was teaching, but I really didn't have a very good understanding of what happens in industry. It took me many years of being in industry, being in the middle of everything that is happening in the industry before I really understood what it is about. And this is a very fundamental problem. Many of us who pursue academics, usually we are very good at that. We get our PhD and then we say, I want to be a professor, I want to be a researcher. We go jump into some university or some research institution, but we never had that exposure. And since we didn't have the exposure, obviously we didn't know, a lot about the industry or industries that we are trying to, support. So this is a great opportunity. Thank you for inviting me. I'm going to share some thoughts in terms of how do we improve this interaction. And I'm going to give you some background. Some of it might be obvious, but I do want to take some time to set the context. So, my talk is very, very organized in a very simple manner, a little bit of background, what I think of as roles of academia and industry, and one chart on conclusion. So I want to start with the idea of how a product evolves. This may be obvious to people in the industry, but hopefully it will help or at least give you something to think about if you're not so familiar. It starts with an idea, and today, of course, in India, everybody wants to be a startup company. Everybody thinks they can take their idea and turn it into $1 billion. But there is a long way between the idea and actually creating a product that somebody will actually buy from you. So in the aerospace context, and probably applies to other complex systems as well, whether it is a automobile, many other things that we make, even a cell phone for that matter, or a mobile phone. There is an idea, there is a detailed design phase that you go through. Then you actually have to make this thing, manufacture this thing, and then you have to make sure that it is working the way it was intended. There are many regulations depending on your industry. There are regulations that you have to satisfy. And then this product gets released in the market, and there is a lot of activity related to service and maintenance of the product. If it's an aircraft, if it's an automobile, it's very, very obvious. Cell phones don't look like they need service, but you keep getting, software updates, and that is a kind of service and maintenance. And then at the end of the day, you also have to think about what do we do with all this? Dr. Ray talked about we are generating all this, lots and lots of hydrocarbons, and sometimes we struggle with what to do with them. We are also actually creating, stuff, wastage, which is not, hydrocarbon form. This is metals and sometimes heavy metals and plastics and all kinds of things that we create. We use them. It was very nice to use them when we were designing it and making it. But then at the end of life of the product, what do you do with it? And that is really something one needs to think about. And one of the ways to look at this is, oh my God, this is so complex. Actually, this complexity offers the opportunity for us to do research, for us to make improvements. And if you think about it, I mentioned the word ecosystem. In order to make any of these products, there is a huge ecosystem that is needed. First and foremost, for a company, for the industry, we need a market. Either it already exists and is crying for help, or in some cases you create a product and the market wasn't even expecting it, but then eventually the market is needed if you want to continue to be successful as an industry. Of course, you need people. You need people, very skilled people. We also need people who can provide the hands and legs to do, some of the work. You need technology, because in every phase of this, chain here, technology plays a role, whether it is by way of new materials, new processes, new machining technology, new software. Technology comes in many different forms. Of course, we need machines to make what we want to make. All this does not happen without the capital. We need specific tools and processes. And then there are standards and governance and so forth that come into the picture as well. I don't claim this to be a complete list. There are many other things depending on your particular industry, depending on your product. So the point is that these two things, the industry element and this ecosystem, they coexist. And to the extent that they coexist, to the extent that they are able to be symbiotic, both these groups or multiple groups here will prosper. If you don't have that symbiosis, then people begin to feel like, nobody listens to me, or I have this idea, but I don't know how to take it forward. Or we talk about this divide between these people think one way, those people think some other way, and so forth. So it is very important for all of us, whether you are in the industry, whether you're in academia, whether you are in other areas of this ecosystem, to understand how this whole business works, and then we can go figure out what can we do about it. Now, I looked at the academia industry as actually knowledge interactions. And the knowledge I'm thinking of in two varieties. One is skills. We all talk about how there is a need for skills and skill councils and all that. From an academia point of view, academia creates skills, creates personnel who have the skills, and academia also can, and in some cases they do, enhance the skills of people. On the industry side, industry requires people with skills, and the people that you have created and the people that you need. That seems to be the focus a lot of times. In fact, even today, I think we have some discussion about what are the right skills needed. I'm going to submit to you that we need to think beyond that, because industry needs additional skills. If I go back to my own career, or I look at the people we hire, they come into the industry with some set of skills. They very quickly discover that they need many more things, many more skills within 2 or 3 years of their joining the industry. It is not enough to know how to do 1 or 2 things well. Suddenly in the industry, you require the ability to do many more things. So there's requiring additional skills. A mechanism to enhance your skills is very, very important. And that seems to be not happening enough in the conversations at least I've been involved with. Similarly, there is a technology aspect to the academia industry knowledge transfer or knowledge interaction, I would call it. Academia generally focuses on new ideas. That's what is exciting to a researcher, to a faculty member. Technologies. Hey, what can we do? It has to be exciting, new. In some cases, we are able to actually, have a system. Maybe there's a lab. There's a little, center where we can go and validate these new ideas up to a point. Now, when you look at industry, of course, yes, we need new ideas. But then these ideas have to become part of the product. They have to be integrated in the product. An idea by itself doesn't get you very far unless it is able to enhance the product or create a whole new product. The idea is just an idea. So there are differences in the way academia and industry look at the technology, the perspective. And if I go into it a little bit deeper, on the skill side, academia creates people with skills. I mentioned that, tends to focus on skills that are in demand in the short term. Because most universities that I have talked to, they say, in fact, they come to me and say, you tell me what kind of courses we should have, what kind of skills we should develop so that they will be ready for your company or for the industry. The only problem with that is, as you can see, industry requirements keep changing. They keep evolving. They evolve depend on what's happening in the world outside. So if somebody started 4 years ago with the idea that they're going to be perfectly created to meet Boeing's requirements, Boeing is in a situation today where we are not hiring many people. And if a bunch of students, prepared themselves to be part of Boeing, they are not going to be happy, and we are all going to be very sad that we created a bunch of skills that nobody cares about. So academia tends to adjust the offerings, what a university was, focusing on, say 10 years ago versus what they are focusing on today, may be different. And the other thing that I have seen is that a lot of focus these days, even though we call ourselves universities, there is nothing universal about our education. It tends to be very focused on what does the market want. Let's train them. In fact, the pity is that when I went to college, it was many, many years ago, we actually every semester we had a non-technical subject. We learned about English, we learned about history, about philosophy, about psychology. And what I hear when I talk to faculties these days is, oh, we don't have time for that because we want to teach them programming and something that they believe the market wants. But let's go take a look at the industry. We definitely need people with skills, but what skills? We need people with skills that can evolve over long term. If I go to, if I look at what I do today versus what I learned in college or even my PhD, they are very, very different. Yes, it provided me the foundation, but it is not something I can say, well, I learned something in college and look what I've done with that. That was a great starting point, but not enough. We expect the same individual, if you want to continue to have a job, we expect that same individual to keep learning new skills. And most importantly, I not only need the technical skills in my staff, I need other skills, such as project management, communication, what we generally think of as the soft skills. I would say those soft skills are actually the hard skills because they're very hard for most of our technically qualified people. And if you don't have those, doesn't matter how wonderful you are as a technical expert, if you don't have the right kind of people skills, you are not going to succeed. So I think there is a disconnect in terms of what the academia tends to focus on and what the industry really needs. Now, what can we do about it? I have a few suggestions. These are suggestions at this point, so it's up to you how we would want to consider them. I would say focus on developing. The A here is for academia. Focus on developing strong fundamentals. What we need in 2015 is very different from what the industry needs in 2020. And what we need in 2025 will be even more different from what we need in 2020. I don't think academia can project. I don't think even industry can project exactly what skills we need 4 years from now or 8 years from now. However, if we have strong fundamentals and you inculcate this curiosity for learning, those two are sufficient to develop the additional skills that are needed, develop the ability to learn new things, develop that love for whatever it is that the individual is trying to do. The other thing I would very strongly advocate is that we definitely need to not only focus on the science, but we need to include the arts. We need to include other things, such as psychology and economics and things like that, even in schools, even in degree programs, where it is all supposed to be about engineering and science, because you need the left brain and the right brain to be equally developed. It's not enough to simply have a wonderful left brain and then the right brain is struggling. Does not make for a great environment for the individual once they get into industry. Now, A&I, academia and industry can work together. I think create avenues for continuous learning. Industry definitely needs more learning, and academia has the opportunity I think they're working together. There can be right kind of opportunities created where this, interaction, continuous learning can happen. Similarly, the other thing I would mention, I think there was a reference to this earlier. I think we need to bring people into the academia who have background in industry, because I was giving you my own example. What I knew as an academician, as somebody who had a PhD, and then what I know today after having spent some time in industry are worlds apart. And the only way you can bridge that gap is if you have some mechanism where you are able to bring in people with experience in industry. They can come and share. You can create. I used to be an adjunct faculty when I was, in the US. I actually used to teach courses in universities, not as a full-time person. I would go and teach maybe once a year, once in 2 years. But it brought in, a different perspective for the students who were attending those classes. Now, let me switch to the area of technology. This is an area, again, a lot of interest among both people in academia as well as in what we refer to as our research labs. I want to look at it from the point of view of these 4 parameters on the right. What motivates them? What is the motivation for doing research for someone who is a faculty member or a researcher in the university? They have curiosity. That's wonderful. Good starting point. And the curiosity usually is about, I want to know something in great detail. That's what I mean by the dissection. You take something, you dig deeper and deeper, and that is the enjoyment in doing research, detailed research. And of course, we are looking for who's going to pay for this. There's some kind of a funding source. So you're looking for what can I do that will match with the funding sources, expectations. And then when I do that research, I want to share that, publish the paper, get my recognition, because the rest of the systems are set up. The dean or the department chair will say, hey, what have you done lately? Have you published papers? And for developing my career as a researcher, publishing papers, getting that external recognition. An international journal paper is better than a local paper. A written paper reviewed by other peers is better than just a presentation I made somewhere. So those are the kinds of things that are motivating the research. There are usually no real hard and fast timelines. I'm not saying there are no timelines, but there's a lot more flexibility in the timelines, because we know that, hey, research is hard. It's not something that I can put on a calendar and say that, on 31st of December, some miracle will happen. Miracle happens all the time, but they don't happen very frequently. The maturity level of the research is focusing more on basic research. Some universities, some of our labs, they have the luxury, they have great facilities, they can go, further exploration, they can actually do a prototype, make a prototype, small scale usually, because large scale prototypes cost money, they are more complex, and most of our research establishments don't have that facility. So the maturity is at a lower level. It's trying to prove that, look, I've got this great idea. I know a lot more about, a particular topic, and I'm able to, if there is a concept, principle, I'm trying to validate, I can show that. And then if you look at the success criteria, a lot of university, especially faculty, you say, how many PhD students graduated under me? How many research papers did our group publish? What is the novelty of the idea, peer recognition? Those are the kinds of things that we focus on. Now, let's take a look at the industry side. The motivation for industry when we look at technology is we either have a current problem or we are imagining a future need. Either I have a problem already, I need to find a solution, or I'm looking at, here is some neat technology. If I could use this, harness it, I could do something, for my market, for my customers. We are interested in integrating technologies. It doesn't matter where it comes from. How can I put, 2 things together, 5 things together, so that I can create an end result? I need to make a product to be able to, or a service. Nowadays you have a lot of software products, which is more like a service. And then, of course, I, as the integrator, the person in the industry, would want recognition within the organization. If I look at the organization would look for success in the marketplace. So there is, recognition for the organization would be in the marketplace. Timelines, there are very specific timelines, usually driven by market forces. I have announced that I'm going to launch a product. In some cases, companies like Boeing, we have already sold the product, even though it is not completely ready. And the customer is saying, hey, you told me you will give me something in January of 2021. Where is it? And so very different, approaches to the timeline part of it. Maturity, whatever technology comes in, it must work in the user's environment. It is, in the case of the academia, it works quite well in the lab, but I don't know whether it will work equally well in a more complex environment. For us, it doesn't matter, what it did in the lab. It must work in the user's environment. It must work at scale because there are many people using it simultaneously. Reliability is very, very important. It's not enough to work once or twice. It has to work again and again. And depending on the product, reliability means slightly different things, but basically it has to work again and again. Success criteria, it must work. That's the fundamental thing. Failure is not an option, because if I, as a researcher or a leader of a research team, go to my boss and say, well, we tried our best, sorry, it didn't work, give me one more year, I will not be around that next year. There'll be somebody else working on it. So failure is not an option. So we have to make it work. And the other thing is, it must fit within certain cost criteria. Just because I introduce new technology, I cannot automatically charge more, because the marketplace will say, I don't care how much you spend creating this new thing. I have a certain, amount I'm willing to pay you, and that is all I'm going to willing to pay. So, the point is that there are very significant differences in how academia and industry would approach the whole area of technology. Now, this is a concept some of you may already be familiar with. NASA back in, probably early 1990s, started introduced this idea. Somebody wrote a paper, NASA latched onto it. The whole idea of a technology readiness level. They have a scale going from 1 to 9. 1 is in the 1, 2 are in the very, very basic research category. More of an idea, concept. I need to prove that, whatever I'm talking about is feasible. That's what takes you to, level 3, 4. And then you develop it further. You have a demonstration of the technology at a small scale, usually. That is what TRL 6 would represent. And if you want to go beyond TRL 6 to 7, 8, and 9, you now have to take this idea that you have demonstrated at a small scale. You have to now make it into a much bigger system, and then you have to actually put it into operation. And if it has been operating for a period of time successfully, no surprises, that is when we would say technology readiness level is 9. It is well proven, solid technology. Now, the journey from 1 to 9 is not easy. And what we find in the world is that academia is better positioned because of the resources needed, because of the interest of the people, because of the ability of the people. Academia is better positioned to look at the lower range of these technology readiness level. In Boeing, we have what we call the Boeing Research and Technology Group. These are people who are good technologists, but they focus on the in-between range. They look at, what are these new things that are coming? It's not like we don't look at, lower technology. We do. However, our focus is on, ideas that have already been validated to some extent. Seems like that is something that would help us, from our product point of view. And then we normally focus up to a technology demo at a smaller scale. And then we have other people in the company who are focused on the product, and they normally say, hey, what kind of a new thing do you have? how can I integrate that into my product? And they are focusing on how do I ensure that this technology that you are talking about is actually working reliably. So that's kind of the system that we have. We work with academia. We've been working with academia for decades now. The only catch is when you go, you can ask the question, why can academia, go to the higher levels? The higher level is, exciting, in its own way, but it is also extremely expensive. So, at this range, if some idea did not work, yes, I've invested some of my time, and the amount of money I might have invested is not very big. I think Dr. Ray was referring to, in Boeing, in other companies as well. Companies would invest in many different ideas, being aware that all these 10 ideas may not succeed. And they only invest a small amount, though, a small amount in all these different areas. And if they succeed, then depending on, okay, what is the benefit that might come out of it, then you invest more. So, things we do in BR&T cost more or more complex than usually what happens in academia. And then, of course, what we do at the program stage is even more expensive and sometimes even more complex, because you are now dealing with many other integrating factors. Now, in BR&T, I just wanted to conclude that I'm not just talking theory here. We do engage with external partners. You will see in this, from the logos, we have some small companies, Lucid, PowerGear. These are small research companies, independent companies. Ramaya Institute is a university. IIT Bombay is a university. Hyderabad, Karunya Institute, IIT Kanpur, IISC. These are all institutes, universities that we work with. Our relationship with them is not identical everywhere. It's different depending on the topic. We also work with, national labs. NAL, National Aerospace Labs, is, very close to where we are physically, and we are very close in terms of our interest areas. So we work with NAL. We also work with, Central Electrochemical Research Institute. We have worked with other institutes as well. This is more of a, what are we doing today? We also create consortiums sometimes. So, these other, interactions are one-on-one. There is a university, there is Boeing, and we identify some area that is of interest to the university, of interest to Boeing, and then we go figure out how to work together. In some situations, we also create, so ANRC is what we call the Aerospace Network Research Consortium. Besides, so this is based in Indian Institute of Science. Boeing is a primary partner. We also have two other companies that we work with. So there's a group of four, three groups from industry, one group from the university academia, working together on areas of common interest. It's exciting enough for the academician, for the researchers to say, this is new, this is something I want to explore. But then there's also interest from the industry that says, if we can figure this out, we can see a way, we can see how we can actually incorporate that into our product. So it's a good way to leverage each other. We also work on the skill side. We engage with many universities. List is a little bit longer. All these are essentially universities, and we work with them in different ways. Again, the engagement is not the same with everybody. How do we make people aware, what happens in aerospace, and what happens at Boeing? How do you get employed in aerospace? And how do you pursue a career? So that's kind of the focus. Help them to understand there are projects that we do. These are not research oriented. These are skill development oriented and develop the interest oriented. Now, just want to conclude. I believe it is possible to work together, both in the area of skills development and technology development. I think my belief is that from the point of view of skills, the focus must be on developing fundamentals. provide those broad skills that the students, the graduates that you are creating are able to leverage for a long time. Not something that they learn and becomes obsolete very quickly. Collaborate with industry, for continuous learning. Bring industry experts, into your teaching mix. Give that exposure to the students. I think all those are good things to do in my mind. And on this, the technology side, I showed you examples of how industry and academia are working together. It is not easy, by the way, because people are usually coming to that party from very different perspectives. So it's very important to define what the working model would be. Very important to define the expectations. Make sure we understand each other. Otherwise, it'll just lead to arguments and discontent on both sides. And transparency and trust are absolutely important, because if you don't have that, you are not going to be able to have meaningful interaction. But I can tell you, I know I've done this in the US, I've done this in India. It is possible to do. You have to go into those relations with a very, very open mindset. So thank you again for giving me this opportunity. And I don't know how much time we have. If we have the time, I would be happy to take any questions.
So I request our panel members and audience if have one or two questions, so we can discuss with Dr. Balaji.
Dr. Bharadwaj, I am Shapon Mukherjee from L&T. I think that was an excellent keynote address from you, sir. You brought in a lot of interesting perspectives. Just one point, I could get a sense that you are also showing a PowerPoint presentation, which of course I was not able to see on the screen. So maybe that share screen option was not pressed, because at least I couldn't see the PowerPoint presentation at all, but never mind.
Okay.
I think your narration was so good. So even without the presentation,
I wish somebody had spoken up, because I thought I was sharing the screen.
Because maybe the share screen option had not been put on, I suspect.
All right. I'm sorry about that.
No, not at all, sir. I think that was a great presentation. After what I've heard you and Dr. Ray, really, when I come in at the fag end of the panel, I'll have really nothing more to add. Thank you so much, sir, both of you.
All right. Well, I wish somebody had spoken up and said, hey, are you using charts? Because I think people knew that I was using charts. I had indicated that before.
Dr. Bharadwaj, it was superlative without presentation.
Okay. Well, thank you for those kind words. But anyway, it's all right. Any other thoughts, comments? Somebody, it says Q&A 1. I don't know what that means. Okay, so there's a question from Sujit Guha. It says, in case of joint collaboration, like you mentioned, how is the IP handled? Is it joint ownership? Yes, in most cases, it is joint ownership. I say most cases because we do this on a case-by-case discussion. We have had situations where we could not come to agreement on how the IP would be handled, and that collaboration did not proceed. There have been situations where we have worked together and created things that where the IP is shared. So it's an area, it is a tricky area, because depending on the particular technology, depending on what background IP teams are bringing to the table, the answer may be slightly different, but it is something definitely that needs to be paid attention to.
Maybe I can make
All right. Any other comments, questions?
Yeah, Dr. Bharadwaj, Anjan here. I thought the point you made about having the attitude of learning was pretty important. One of the things that I foresee, and towards the latter part of my industrial career, I began to emphasize at the recruitment level, was adaptability. A lot of youngsters tend to see what is out there, like you mentioned, and focus on the here and now capabilities, but most of them don't necessarily demonstrate the ability to learn something new. So I do want to encourage people who are on this forum, particularly in academia, to encourage the spirit of learning peripherally, just as you said, liberal arts subjects, some knowledge of economics, some knowledge of programming languages, some knowledge of a foreign language. All of these show an attitude of learning and actually build hidden capabilities that could be useful someday. That's one suggestion I did want to add on to what you said.
Yeah, no, let me add a comment to that. What I find is that I think this is not only the challenge for the universities. I think it starts from the homes and the way we seem to commoditize education. It's like, well, go get a degree because you want to get a job. I think the right way to approach it is go to a university so you get an education. And if you have the right education, you will find a job. But if you find a job right after graduating from college, in fact, many universities will show you that list. More than what departments or what courses we offer. The list is longer when you look at these are the companies that come and recruit here. And there are students I know who select universities because I've spoken to some of them. They select universities based on, if I go there, I can get a job in that company. So the going through the university becomes a ritual just to end up in a particular company the 16-year-old or 18-year-old is thinking about. And of course, they change their mind by the time they're 25 and they realize that they don't have the skills to go somewhere else that now their interest is directing them to. So I think the emphasis needs to be brought back to education more than skill development. I think skill development is embedded in the education, but I think the emphasis, at least from my perspective, needs to be on the broader education. You can develop skills. I'm not saying don't develop skills, but don't stop with developing skills. Go beyond that. I think that's very, very important.
One question, Dr. Bharadwaj, because you have seen the ecosystem of IIT out here in India, and then you taught at Boston and you have worked with these industries also. So what major difference do you see in India, especially this IIT, these institutions, and out there, and as far as academia is concerned?
See, there is no big difference in the university itself. There are great universities in India, there are great universities in the other parts of the world, US, Europe, and so forth. The best universities anywhere in the world, they have a mechanism to attract the best students to begin with. The entrance criteria are such that you only get the best students. IITs are a great example. You cannot just get into an IIT unless you meet those test requirements. Same is true with MIT or a Harvard or a Stanford or those kinds of universities. And when you bring that cream of the crop, those excellent students, you create an atmosphere where that curiosity, that willingness to learn, the broadness of knowledge, all that is existing. So I think we need to be very clear that while everybody should get those opportunities, the starting point that you have in terms of the inherent qualities of the student, the background that the students bring to the table is very important. Because whatever the university does, we'll be able to build on top of that. So it's not only what happens in the university, but it is also what happened prior to that. And my point is, instead of thinking of developing people so that they can get a job, that's like a technical institute. Go to an ITI, learn about machining, I learn about wiring, I learn about circuits, and I have already made as a technician in a factory somewhere doing that, practicing that skill. A good machine wants to hire 50 people with Java programming. I think we have done a disservice.
Thank you.
There are a couple more questions on the Q&A. Do we have?
Oh, okay.
Master?
Let's see.
We have few questions. So,
How do you envisage the future? Well, I think the future, in my mind, the future is always better because we are having these conversations. You are still here. You haven't muted me out. You are listening to what I'm saying, and I think that's a good sign. I'm not saying I'm right and somebody else is wrong. I think it is always good to exchange those ideas, think, about how can we do things differently. And I'm happy that we have brought this large group of people together. I think that dialogue is very, very important. So future is definitely better. How do we, create these partnerships across industry and academia so that both the parties benefit? This is not, if industry talks to academia, academia only will benefit, or the other way around. I think if we work together, both the groups can benefit. So that's what I see. Reservation and entrance exam, does that affect the general category? I don't claim to be an expert on this, but I will, my feeling is that in order to do anything, you need the right preparation. If the reservation, those kinds of things are there for a reason. But if we bring in people who need some help, we need to provide that help. If you have the right foundation, you can build a big building. If you don't have the right foundation, you can teach somebody a particular skill, make it sound like they are ready for a job, which is kind of not. It depends on and the university. And if you were focused more on, so and so company is our good sponsor. They come here and hire 100 students every year. You are going to direct your activities towards meeting that requirement, because the university needs to show that, look, 93% of my students actually found jobs. Therefore, please come and join my university. When I graduated from IIT Madras, I didn't have a job lined up, and in fact, I didn't know what I was going to do. But that doesn't make me a useless person. It actually, it opened the door and said you can do many things, not just one thing or those two things. And to me, I think, especially those institutes that call ourselves as universities, please look at the definition of what a university is. A university is a place where you have the opportunity to learn variety of things. And the question is, are we really providing that opportunity to students? In the US or maybe in Europe and so forth, students can choose from a variety of subjects. You can be pursuing engineering and you can take a music class. How many of our engineering colleges offer that possibility? If I want to learn music, I have to join the music club maybe. But is there a music class? Is there a music appreciation class? Are we talking about languages? Are we talking about Indian languages, foreign languages? These are all ways to enhance the capability of the individual. It may not look today. 30, and that's you are not going to find this perfect set of classes, courses that are going to be ready, make them ready for the next few 30 years. What skills are must for an IT student? Wow. I don't know. I think IT, I used to do programming. If you are thinking about information technology, it is when you are writing, think logically. I think is very important. The actual code, whether it is written in Java, C++, whatever those things are like languages. So the analogy I can think of is, Somebody who's a programmer is like a speaker. I can speak in English, I can speak in some other language. That's a capability I have. But more than whether I know a language, whether I know the grammar and the syntax in the language, it is more important how I'm thinking, because I'm speaking to you what is in my mind. So the IT is same way. What is the logic, and then how do I convert that logic into the particular code which says the if-then statement, or equals to, or go here, over there, whatever those paths are within the programming. But I think that ability to think and come to logical decisions, logical paths, I think is the most important. Did Dr. Ray want to add something to that?
Thank you. I think you covered all the points, and this is an ongoing discussion. It's there are more questions that I have commented that we are